So for my second trip out with the new DJI Osmo Pocket 3, I chose to go to the Coventry Transport Museum, which is in the middle of town. It's been there for 40 odd years. And I went there with my two daughters. I haven't been to the museum for several years now, so I was interested to see what, if anything, had changed. It used to be free to get in, but now it's not, and it's not cheap unless you live in Coventry itself, when you get a much discounted price.
Lovely.
So we first called in at the cafe, which is right at the front of the museum, for a quick coffee and a pastry, and then moved on into the museum after paying our entrance fee, which was £3 each for the girls and £2.50 for me, as I'm a concession apparently. Not sure I'm very happy about that, but there you go. The first part of the museum features the cycle industry, with various of the cycle pioneers available to talk to you, telling you all about them, although I'm not quite convinced it's actually them talking. We were interested to see the penny farthings, wondering how on earth people actually got up onto them. This 5-seat tandem was made by Rudge in 1900 and was used as a marketing tool really for what they could do with. I'm not sure if ever 5 people actually got on it and went off for a ride. I'd be a bit worried if I was in the middle, not able to operate any brakes or do any steering. The museum starts at the earliest machines and then gradually works its way through the years, introducing early motorbikes. And this tricycle was made by Humber and was called a four-car, F-O-R-E-C-A-R, has the seat right at the front, and that was made in about 1904, I think. I thought this timeline was interesting for the First World War, showing how they got troops there. It starts off with a horse in 1914 and ends up with a car in 1918.
The engines of the museum, the old radials.
Alvis is a name that's long been associated with Coventry, and they made cars, aircraft engines, armoured cars and tanks, etc. when the war was on, so it was a very important manufacturer for the war effort. I saw the name Pratt's on that petrol can that was on the running board of that old car, and I looked it up, and that was an old American company originally, which then in the 30s turned into Esso. A motorcycle named Wee McGregor, sounds like it was a Scottish bike, but no, that was made in Coventry, as was the one that's got Spark Brook on the side of it, because Spark Brook is part of Birmingham, so you'd think that that's where that was made. No, that was also made in Coventry. An early sidecar showing a very early road tax disc from the 1940s. I'm sure that was an awful lot cheaper than what it is now to tax your car or bike.
Based in Cowley near Oxford, produced Britain's first £100 car. 3 years later, they were making 100,000 cars. In 1931, there were about 1 million private cars on 100 roads. By the end of the decade,
I love the sign on the wall with this display with the motorbike and the nice looking Riley Kestrel in front of it. It says that more people are now using cars for driving out of the cities to see Britain's beautiful countryside, and it does make you realise that before people had access to motor vehicles of one form or another, they were pretty much stuck where they lived, really, and never got to see the rest of the country. There's a few royal cars in the museum, and the one thing that strikes you about them is how flipping big they are. They were enormous. It's not the sort of car that the Queen or the King or whoever was going to pop down to Morrison's in, I don't think. I think it would have been a bit tricky to park it. I do like this display of a little old workshop that was also selling petrol from the petrol pump, and that looks like an Austin 7, I guess, that's sitting there in front of it. Quite a common, popular little car in its day. And as I said, of course, with the war effort, a lot of the companies turned their hand to making armoured vehicles and tanks. This is a fire engine for the Alfred Herbert factory, and at one time Alfred Herbert was the largest machine tool manufacturer in Britain and one of the largest in the world. So it's a very old name that's connected with the city. Most people have heard of the Coventry Blitz, when the Luftwaffe came over and launched a massive attack on Coventry. And in one of the museums in Coventry, there's a map that the Luftwaffe used to pinpoint their targets, because a lot of the factories, as I said earlier, had turned their hand to making various things for the war effort. So it was a real target for the Luftwaffe to wipe them out. And this exhibit that's in the museum plays a soundtrack every 7 minutes that includes air raid sirens, etc. So there is a way to bypass it for people that don't really want to walk through it and perhaps get reminded of how bad times were in the middle of the Second World War. I've heard it said that the government knew that the attack was coming but didn't warn Coventry, because the reason it knew was that they'd broken the code on the Enigma machine. If they'd have taken action indicating that they'd got knowledge of the attack coming, it would have tipped the Germans off to knowing that they'd broken the code. As so much of Coventry was destroyed in the Blitz and the war generally, there was a big job for the planning department to reconstruct it. I think Coventry residents have mixed views as to how successful that was in terms of the architectural design that was used. That's another huge royal car on display. And this yellow Dolomite Sprint, I love that, because when I was younger I had 2 Dolomite Sprints, loved them, favourite cars. One was dark blue, and then the second one was in British Racing Green, which had the overdrive switch on the gear lever. They were brilliant fun. I think they were the first 16 valve production engine to be used in a motor vehicle. And this is a lovely example of the Triumph Stag, which was a beautiful looking car. The only problem with it was the engine, I believe, was a V8, which was constructed by putting 2 4-cylinder ordinary Dolomite engines together, which didn't work particularly well. It used to overheat. So there was a company in Coventry that was set up specifically for owners to go along there for the engine to be swapped out for, I believe, a Rover engine, or perhaps a Ford engine, I can't remember which. Coventry was also the centre for making the iconic London taxis that you see all over the country.
The city was lovely. It was a lovely place to walk around.
When I saw this display of rally kids' bikes, I expected to see the rally chopper there at the end, but although it looks a bit like a rally chopper to me, it's not actually a rally chopper. It's a different rally bike. Good old Moggy Minor van being used by the Royal Mail there. Saw many Moggy Minors on the roads back in the day. Very popular car. And then this Triumph 2.5 litre twin carb police car. myself and a friend and our two wives drove to Spain on holiday once in his dad's Triumph 2.5 petrol injection, 2.5 PI, which was great fun. This little blue van looks like an early version of the camper van with some old caravans next to it. Not sure quite how comfortable they would have been. Then another military vehicle that was put into manufacture. By Elvis. And then this bus was the bus that was used to take the Coventry City Football Club players around the town in celebration after they won the FA Cup in 1987. That was an amazing day for the city. She only had one metro though, didn't she? I think.
What?
Thought so, yeah.
6, 7.
This is a TR7. I had a TR7 convertible back in the day, but it wasn't anywhere near as good as the Dolomite Sprints. And nestling next to it is a Sinclair C5, a little electric vehicle dreamt up by Clive Sinclair, expecting it, I think, to take off and be used by many people for personal transport, but unfortunately it didn't and failed miserably, I think. Another famous manufacturing name associated with the city was Jaguar. It's built many beautiful cars over the years. Including the fantastic E-Type, which still looks brilliant today, even though it's probably 40 or 50 years old in terms of the design. And this Jaguar concept car has been in the museum for quite a while. I'm not sure whether that is the shades of the F-Type in that, I don't know. And then moving downstairs, there's a timeline of the land speed record holders. It's interesting that the very earliest one was 40 miles an hour, and then there's a couple around 90 miles an hour, but I'm sure that those 90 mile an hour ones would have been particularly scary back in the day in the vehicles that they were using to break those records. And then you see that there's Donald and Malcolm Campbell mentioned father and son in a couple of those records, both of whom were killed carrying out record attempts on water, I think. And then you see that a lot of these are British drivers, and then some of them are US drivers. Obviously the two countries vying for who had the record at a particular time. And then you actually see Thrust 2, which is a British vehicle that broke the land speed record. Taking it away from America. So I hope you enjoyed that quick spin round Coventry Transport Museum. As I said, I was using it really to keep practicing with my new Osmo Pocket. I think my colour grading has possibly got a bit better on this one compared to my first effort, and also my studio background here hopefully is a little bit more attractive than I used in the first one. Anyway, onwards and upwards, as they say. Thanks for watching if you got this far.